Cosmic here, welcome back to the channel, and it is time to finally celebrate the launch of Fusion World, or at least the starters and the full booster sets launch next week, although people will be having pre-releases where they can get some of those booster packs early, which is why you've probably been seeing some of them getting open. So, like I mentioned in my 2024 kind of overcap video, there are a lot of trading card games coming out this year that I want to at least celebrate the launch of because I think they're doing something cool or they're fun to play, and this one follows both. If you've been missing the news that there's actually going to be a full digital client for this game. So that's one reason to be excited. And we finally got the official launch date of February 29th. So end of this month, you can start playing this game digitally as well. So I will most likely be going to the first regional, which is going to be in May, and I'm very excited for it. But at least for the type of content for the next couple weeks, we are going to be doing a lot of opening each of these starter decks, as well as opening up a box or a case. I'm still waiting. At the time of recording, there's been a lot of the demand is just blowing out of the water and people just weren't prepared for this release. So I ordered a case. I might not get a case. We'll find out together next week when I get around to making that video. But at least for now, let's get into the starter deck, and we are just going to be kicking things off with FS01, or the Goku starter deck. And I'm just going to really quick show off all these sides here in case people are interested in what it is. You get to see your leader. The other side had the deck list. And then, as I mentioned here on the back, it does mention that there is a digital version where you can play as well. But what I really like is that these, starting with this, and then I know that Digimon did something similar. One Piece has this in their upcoming starter decks, but you actually do get a foil version of 1 of 7 cards in the deck itself as kind of like a bonus incentive. Now, I did already open all of them, so I'll cover that when I get to it, because I couldn't wait to open it. I wanted to see what I got, right? But otherwise, we will just go through normal unboxing. And then also at the end, I do have a meta sample list for people to look at. As you know, that Japan just had all of their events this kind of past 12 hours or kind of however the time zones work. So I've been sharing a lot of them on Twitter or in the Facebook group, so you can definitely look forward to those there. But I will have a sample list at the end, which I'll talk about at a very high level. So here is our leader. As I mentioned, the code's on the other side of this, so I have no problem just showing this off from the back side. But hey, there is going to be lots of good stuff here from the code pack that you get in the back as well. So these are always awful to open, so I'm going to test my luck here and see how it goes. And I have to say, it is day one, so take this with a massive grain of salt. But red does seem a little absent from kind of the early previews and early, what's winning day one. There's a lot of Ginyu, there's a lot of yellow and green, but I think at least we will see red pop up as we move on. So starting with our leader here, and again, we'll see how this comes through in the camera. I'm not sure. I changed my new camera setup. Let me know how you like it in the comments. But this is going to be our Awaken side and then our base leader side. So for those that are probably familiar with at least a little bit of Dragon Ball Masters I've seen before, yes, they do have flip leaders. You awaken with them to make them stronger, and they get an additional effect. So you'll notice, again, it goes from the 15k base up to 20k. And that is one thing that I'll mention here as well, is that they are color locked. So if you have a red leader, you can only put red cards in your deck. So that is something to keep in mind for deck constraints. So we are just going to go in order. I guess I'll get this out of the way too. Each deck does have a energy marker. This is something that you get going second. It's basically the coin in Hearthstone, and that's it. It's just a token that you have. They have really cool fancy ones you can get for going to regionals and things of that nature, but these starter decks do at least have one with them. So starting off, we have our super rares, and yes, if you've played a Bandai game, you do realize that you need to buy 2 starter decks, and that is still very much the same case here. So I love how this card looks in person. You're probably not going to get a lot of the texture and the special foiling coming up on this camera. Unfortunate, but at least you can see at least some of the design, and in the higher rarity stuff, they have like a gold stamping for the names as well, which is really cool. But this Son Goku, as we're going to see in the list at the end, is very, very strong and very, very good. So you will want to be picking up 2 of the red starter decks if you want to be playing red. That said, you will also notice it has the minus 2000 power BP effect here. So important thing to note that yes, it is removal like it is in some of the other Bandai games, and unfortunately does not count, or unfortunately, depending on which side that you're on, does not count towards KO. So it is a way to get rid of some of those KO abilities. So we have the 2 Goku SRs, and then we have Son Gohan as our other, and again, this is probably not going to come through in the camera. Oh well, did my best. Then we have another one, 4-drop critical, and when attacking, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 10,000 power. So you can start to see here that there is a lot of more controlling options that are available here, because of course, even if the 10k doesn't remove something outright, it does allow you the chance to swing into something a lot easier and remove your opponent's effects that way. So 2 of those. And again, I did flash the list at the start if you want to see it overall in terms of what we're getting for each card copy in the deck. Choose one of your opponent's battle cards, gets minus 5,000 BP. So again, this is just going to be a 1-drop, helps get some extra battle power effects through. We have a 1-drop Cycler in Master Roshi. On play, draw 1 card. We do see this for every color. We have a 2-drop Krillin. This card gets plus 5,000 power. On play, add 1 card from your life to your hand. So as I mentioned, for maybe those who are not as familiar, I'm just going to go back to it really quick. Oh, there's a leader. They do have the Awaken condition. When your life is at 4 or less, draw a card, then flip this card over. And then, of course, once you're awakened, there's no other effect, shout out to Force of Will with like the J ruler flips and all that stuff. Once you're on that side, you actually are just on this side for the rest of the game. You have 8 life. So once you lose half of your life, you can then flip it over into the stronger form. So we do have these awakening style of cards that we'll find. So again, Krillin here being an enabler. It is nice that it gets a 5,000 power boost on your turn, but again, there are other options within each color that can give you this kind of self pain inflicting effect. And for this case, we only have 2 Krillin in this deck. We have Super Combo. This is a type of card. So as you're playing, as you're attacking and defending, those cards come out of your hand. And this one is if you do it on defense, you do get an additional 10,000 combo power. So while it's not a perfect guard in the sense of like Vanguard will stop the attack outright, it is a limited, you can only have 4 in the deck sort of thing where it's like, hey, this is very, very high value for blocking with. So something you want to save for a key turn when you need a block for 20k. And you get a full playset of those. We then have Android 17 sliding on down. Opponent's turn, this card gets plus 5,000 power, so a little bit more difficult to remove. As I mentioned, on play, add 1 card from your life to your hand. So we do see 4 of those Self-Awakeners as well. And then we're getting some nice vanillas here, 2 for 20k. One thing to note is, again, the power totals will be a little bit different, and that's one of the ways that they balance it. So you have your 2-drop vanilla, and then you'll notice your SR, much like we see in One Piece as well, doesn't have any power on the side of it. So this is something you can't guard with. So if it's stuck in your hand, right, you can't just run all super rares or ones that have very low power defense because you're not then going to be able to block very efficiently or guard against attacks and lose the game that way. So there is a lot of value to be had in 10k power. So you do want to make sure that as you're building your deck, you do have some amount of 10k blockers. I should stop saying blockers because blocker is another type, but 10k guard available to you in your hand. Moving on from there, 1-drop 15. We have Tien as another 10k blocker. We have Piccolo, 3-drop 10k blocker. So again, you're really starting to get that has nice BP thresholds where you can still hit the Awakened leader, but otherwise just a bunch of 10ks. Another card that's come up really well, and I think one that's going to be seeing a lot of fun and a lot of play in the red list we sell is the Beerus. So again, this is a starter deck exclusive, and you will want 4 of them. So you will need a second starter deck because again, it only comes 2. So critical, again, a great way to deny the hand advantage that you normally get from attacking your opponent because that life then goes to hand. And then when attacking, choosing up to one of your other battle cards, and it gets plus 5,000 for the turn. So this is nice that it is a 20k. It's still going to be able to allow you to hit through, again, 15 on base, 20k on the other side as reference. It still counts as a check itself, and because you're able to give something that the 5k boost, if they're at 15 originally, then you can make them to where they're going to attack the Awakened side up to 20k and still force a card out of your opponent's hand. So the combination of critical and just giving the extra 5k boost, I think this is something that's going to see a lot of play in some of the upcoming lists, and it's also a Universe 7, which does matter for some things that we might get into in a later video. Frieza, 10k body, 30k though, which is really nice to see. We have 2-drop Vegeta, which is critical. This pose always cracks me up because if you were to like put him on a beach, he's just doing like one of these in the background. So difficult for me to take this serious. But again, nice to see that we have another 10k, so you can start to see where they put that all together. And then we are getting into the other card type. So we saw the leader cards, we saw, well, battle cards. And then we also have extra cards. There's one other type that are called, I think, fields in this game that are just, they, spoiler, sit out on the field. And I don't think there's any in the starter decks, but there is one in the main set, so something to look forward to in the future. But events or extras, as they're called in this game, again, are just kind of one-time use effects. So we have the Kamehameha, wonderful iconic piece. 1-drop, choose your leader up to one of your battle cards, a leader or up to one of your battle cards, excuse me, gets plus 15,000 power for the turn, then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, it gets -5. So it's a 20k swing for a single energy. And we do see a lot of this like plus 15 in the event cards, which is nice because then it's something that, you know, we see a lot of the battle cards that are 5k or 10k. This now gets you up to 15k of a power increase, and then also has a minus 5k, and that is for the turn versus the 15k, which is for the battle. So depending on the attack sequencing, the splitting can matter, but a lot of times I imagine this is just going to be a 20k defensive play swing that can make sure that your, you know, battle unit is surviving, or you take or don't take that life of damage. And then the other, so there's only 2 of those. And then for the 2-cost event, we have God Kamehameha. If you have no battle cards, reduce this card in your cost by 1, and then you can choose when your opponent's KOs a 30k power or less and KO it, which is very strong. That is kills a lot early on, and especially if your opponent, you know, crack back, remove your battle card or the only other battle card you had, you can start your turn, swing with your leader, draw a card, play God Kamehameha, killer thing, then play a unit, right? So sequencing does matter a lot. You're not locked into more of a, you know, main battle end sort of progression. So definitely keep that in mind as you're going through and playing throughout your turns itself. So other than that, I want to go back to the packs, right? I mentioned that there is special packs that you get as I just dropped them. We're doing it live, folks. Special opening, as I mentioned, so you can kind of see these two side by side. I'm really glad I got the events because it's, I think, a lot easier to see how they come out. So again, these are included in every starter deck. It is a, you know, 1 of 7 that you can get. You can see that it is foiled. You do get the text box removed, so you get to see more of that artwork, which is really nice. And you get to see really just more of like the foiling on it. Probably doesn't come through. I guess let me take this out of the sleeve really quick. Because what I really liked on these is like the flat silver foiling that they have, right? And like you can kind of see it. It's going to get all reflective off my like computer and all that stuff, but really nice. So there's no detail, but I did like the silver foiling that they had on these. And then of course I did get the other event as well. And I'll just put these two up side by side really quick. And again, maybe these only go for, well, I guess it's hard to see how it goes from like people may or may not be able to get starters perspective, right? So there is the Kamehameha in its full form. Really nice to see. Again, the full art just looking really, really nice. So I would imagine, like, we've already seen some Japan prices, and the Destructive Strength, which shout out to Aspira, he told me that'll most likely be the most expensive one out of the starters. They had it going for 15. So I would love to see these top out at 15 as people are kind of dumping them, but we'll have to wait and see. And then, of course, here at the end, I'm going to put up a list, as I mentioned, which I'm going to very quickly to show you these two cards again. The Son Goku, which is going to give the minus 20k, has double strike, so it's nice that it's dealing double damage. And Gohan with the critical and minus 10,000 power, because here we do have a Beerus list, which is going to be more of a control focus. As I mentioned, I'm going to have one of these lists at the end of every video as well, but this is quite literally day 1 of events. We do not have a lot of insight in terms of how is product availability kind of overall. You know, are people able to, you know, open a bunch of packs, get what they want? Is this the finalized list? Probably not, but I think it's a good enough starting point where you can look at this. Obviously, very minimal changes, all things considered, in terms of what they're playing with, but this is something that they were able to take to an event, win, and go from there. So it turns out just by swapping the Beerus leader, right, can do a lot of work in this regard. And again, we are seeing the work here getting done from the 2 super rares as well as from the Beerus, which I mentioned is the critical one. So we'll go back to... And then, of course, the Beerus with the critical and getting the 5,000 swing that turn. So, obviously, this is like a very minor upgraded starter deck because it has just the effects. But it did win a local 3-0, and it did battle out some other more complete decks. But in terms of red list overall, like, this is quite literally the only thing I could find. So, this one, again, mostly just being very, very, very minor changes, but still, I think, a very good starting point for people to get into the game with. So, that is a quick look, again, at the overall Goku starter, or the FS01 FS01 as they're being called. And again, I'm really excited to get these sleeved up and start playing at my local game store. So with that said, make sure to check out BTCG Plus or the Bandai app so you can find a locals near you that will be carrying Fusion World. And at worst, if maybe you're unable to pick up some product, go check out Walmart and Targets are starting to carry it as well. And then we always have the digital client as well to look forward to. So definitely keep that in mind. But with that, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.